things like standardized string length?
Oh yeah, thank you for that. Yes, first of all, because of the sizes, the various sizes, that was another important factor about the sizes. Some basses, these large basses, the string length is very long, and strings, and then also on the other side of the spectrum, you have the very small basses. So the string length variance is quite amazing between the small one and the very large ones. Mm-hmm. Strings are generally made for one size. Right. And so if your bass is very large, the strings will not work in the same way on the instrument. And if it's very small, the strings will probably be a little bit flabby in its response. So I wish there were a standard string length. Personally, I know that the strings are made in inches. I'm not sure whether it's in centimeters, but it's 42 inches should be a standard string length, or within a half inch of 42. Mm-hmm. That's probably what, 80 something centimeters. But anyhow, I think that's an important thing. Thank you for mentioning that.
And in terms of setup, what's interesting is I had the Kusavitsky, your former Kusavitsky Amati bass in my shop, and you have a different setup, a tighter radius on the bridge, strings closer together, and a 42-inch string length. But to me, the bass never felt like it had 42 inches. It felt like a shorter string length, but was very user-friendly, very easy to play. Can you talk a little bit about your setup and how that has affected your playing?
Well, it was basically twofold. I wanted to bring the strings together because the bass resonates with a tremendous amount of power, and it takes a special kind of setup in order to handle all this vibrating surface that you get on all aspects of the bass, from the tailpiece all the way up to the tuning mechanism. And I thought that if I bring the strings closer together, it'll push the bridge more directly into the top. Mm-hmm. And that would cause the instrument to respond quicker and with more power. That was an acoustical thing. From a player standpoint, I wanted to bring the strings closer together because in solo playing particularly, when I have to bar two notes or play double stops, if the strings are far apart, of course they'll be further apart above the fingerboard as well, and that distance makes it impossible to bar it. So I wanted to bring them together. Also, another factor that I found really easier to deal with in the slope of the bridge was if the strings are closer together, you can alter the variance more easily than when they're wider apart, so that you can get clearance on each string more easily when they're closer together. And from a player standpoint, that clearance is really important, but also moving from one string to the next. You don't have to move as far. My strings, I guess if you add up the sum of all the strings together, they're actually about an inch closer. Then you find out, well, that inch, when you're moving the bow all the way across the string, is quite significant. Yes, so yes. I'm minimizing the movement by having the movement of the right arm by having the strings closer together. And I think that would work really well in orchestra too. The wider strings, I think, were a result of gut strings. I was a gut string player. That's how I began. And the gut strings were thicker, and they needed more space, and I think that's how it got started. And things have changed, and now with the metal strings, we have a lot more possibilities to improve.